Hello everybody, welcome back to Creating Haley. My name is Kimberly at Creating Haley and I'm your host here. And what we just saw is what I am working on for our next block of the month. So that is Sabrina right there, right there. And Bella just walked in too. So I have both my kitties here. So we are making a rail fence quilt, tiny little quilt, and I am using these fabrics. So I'm calling this 3D Halloween rail fence, and I have a twist to it. So if you've never made a rail fence before, stay tuned. This is super easy, really simple. I'm only using 3 colored fabrics, and we're making width of fabric. We're sewing the strips together. It is super simple. So what's the 3D part? Let's get into it. So happy you guys are here today. Thank you for joining my channel today. Thank you for watching this video. I am trying to increase the quality and the production of my videos, so please ignore the mess around my creative space here. But those of you who are creatives know it kind of gets a little bit messy. I clean it up, I organize, and then it gets a little bit messy again. But maybe we'll do a reorganizing video. But anyway, let's get back to this. So I had a request for a Halloween video, and I'm not really sure what that means. So does it mean like black cats, bats, and goblins? I don't know. Does it mean like scary? Does it mean kind of fun, like candy and ghosts, and like what does it mean to you? So I found this remnant. You can see it's bone names, skulls, and bones and rib cage. Where's the skull? Here's the skull right here. And there's a pelvis over here. So I thought that was Halloween-ish. I mean, it could be doctor-ish. It could be chiropractic. It could be what I do, massage, because we deal with the body all the time, right? The bones, muscles. And this is what I teach when I teach massage. I teach bones and muscles and joints and all kinds of stuff. Anyway. And then I found this fabric and I found this fabric and I thought that would be really cool. Now it's not green and orange and, you know, like whatever purple. Well, this is purple. Those seem to be Halloween colors. However, I cut up the yardage. So I found this remnant at Joann. I'll just say the name where I found the remnant, and it was almost a yard. It was a little shy of a yard, so I got that. And then I found this fabric, and I thought that was beautiful. You know, I wanted something a little bit Halloween-y and purple. I thought purple and black for Halloween, right? Because, you know, this is a black background fabric. And so I was looking at like lime green, electric green, and orange, and it just wasn't really matching with this. Now, if you look at this fabric, it has some blue. You can see like it does have a little bit of blue in it. And so I thought I wanted to bring out that like teal color. And then I found this star or like night sky fabric. And I was like, yeah, that really matches with this. So that's my process. However you want to do it is your process. So, but we're making a simple rail fence and rail fence quilt pattern. So, or block pattern. So I just thought I would use these 3 fabrics. Now you can use more. You can use 4 or 5. I've seen that number of fabrics used. It could be really scrappy. It doesn't have to all be the same. It could be super scrappy. So however you want to do it is up to you. But I'm going to show you how I do this one and how I make it 3D. And these are not the same size strips. So you could buy a jelly roll and have all the 2.5-inch strips. Now we're still making a 6-inch block. So this is what we're making. I showed you this already. This is what we're making. And I put the black on the bottom. And this is directional fabric also. So I'm going to show you how I work with the directional fabric. And I put the black on the bottom and then the other two accent colors above that. And that's all you do. So what I did was I cut width of fabric and I made sure that my direction was in the way I wanted it to go. So width of fabric is about 42 inches long. So from one selvage edge to the other selvage edge. This is about 42, 4 inches long, but we have to cut off the selvages, so we only have like about 42 inches to work with from width of fabric from one end to the other. And I did the same thing with this. Now, I cut this 3.5 inches. So I'm making 6-inch squares. So these right here are 6-inch squares. And I used this template, this measuring template. This is a 6-inch, not 6.5, but 6-inch on the nose. So I don't know if you can see that. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-inch. I'm not sponsored by OmniGrid. Oh, this isn't even the right direction. There you go. I'm not sponsored by OmniGrid. This is just the tool that I have. You can use whatever tool that you have, but I am using the 6-inch, not 6.5, 6.25, not 5.5, 6-inch square. And that's what this is. So what I did, here's the measurements. 3.5-inch wide strip. Or I don't know if it's wide, but it's tall. 3.5-inch by width of fabric. Now, because I'm not using jelly rolls, which are 2.5 inches, you would use 3 2.5-inch jelly rolls to make this. So if you notice, this is really wide and these are a little bit more narrow. Now these are uniform. So these two strips are the same size, and then this is really bigger. That's really much bigger, okay? So this is 3.5-inch. So cut width of fabric, WOF, 3.5-inch. And then these two are 2 inches. These two strips, again, width of fabric, 2 inches. Let me just make sure. Did I cut that? Yes, 2 inches. Now, seam allowance, same with this, 2 inches. Seam allowance is going to eat up some of that width. So, when I did my measurements, here's my little cool, I didn't draw the picture, but I just did the math up here. So what I did was a jelly roll. I figured 2.5 inches by 3, I only want to use 3 colors, is a 7.5-inch total inches, minus 1.5 inches, which is seam allowance. So I'm taking out 1.5 inches for seam allowance, and that equals a 6-inch square. Okay, so that's perfect. That's what this is. So then what I wanted to do was show more of this because I wanted to get the words in, I wanted to get the pictures, and because it's directional, I had to make sure that I kind of did it the right way. So, or not the right way, but the directional way, okay? I wanted to make sure I had enough space so that you could see. Like, these words are big, so I didn't want to cut them all. I didn't want to make it super small. I wanted the picture of the fabric because it's Halloween. So if you find, and that's another thing, let me do a tangent here. So if you find like a really fun Halloween print, and you want to get the majority of it, so wherever the repeat is, like I wanted to make sure that I got in, even if it wasn't the full repeat, like a lot of the repeat. So when you find a fun fabric, you can buy that. Now, that fabric can be a little bit more pricey, so that's your highlight fabric. And this is also what I did. So this was actually on sale, but this is what I call a highlight fabric. It's a little bit more pricey. And then you buy fabric that's not in like the what I want to say, like the series, or it's not the highlight fabric. You just find something else that's on sale, or like $2.99 for a yard. Yeah, and then that brings your cost down for the project, right? So, or whatever you find on sale, if it works, great, if you find like more highlight fabric that is on sale, that it works for you, super, do it, right? Okay, so anyway, back to the math. So I wanted to still end up with a 6-inch ending. Now this is 6-inch unfinished, so this is a 6-inch block. I trimmed it down to 6 inches. So in your project, this square will become 5.5 inches because it's going to be a 1/4-inch seam allowance on each side. So the overall finished square in your project is 5.5 inches. But you trim this down to 6 inches, and all the blocks should be pretty much the same. Now you're going to have some wiggle room because there's some seam allowances in here, and maybe somewhere along the way there's a biased edge. So you want to be careful, and maybe your trimming isn't exact. Yeah, so when you trim around it, sometimes this little measuring tool might move a little bit. You want to try to keep it as close as possible. So to that end, I wanted this a little bit bigger and these two smaller. So I had to do some math. So 3.5 inches for this, okay? And then so I knew I had to work backwards a little bit. So from 7.5 inches overall, so right, the 7.5 inches. So when you have, and I got that from the top. So 2.5 inches in the jelly roll times 3 is 7.5 inches overall. So again, I knew 7.5 inches was going to be the end, like the end, not the total end, but what I'm working from backwards. And then so I made this 3.5 inches. So I knew I only had 4 inches then to work with, 4 inches left. You divide that by 2 and you get 2 inches. Simple math, right? So I knew that these two pieces had to be 2 inches. Now, did I have to make them both equal? No, I could have done 3 inches and 1.5, or whatever, and had them a little bit, even these a little bit different sizes. But no, I wanted these the same. So because this was a little less than a yard of fabric, I bought 2 half yards. So this was a half yard, this was a half yard. So I had a yard of this highlight fabric to work with, or not highlight, but complementary fabric to work with, and then a little bit less than a yard for this. So I had almost 2 yards to work with. Okay, so that's what I'm working with. My project is going to be small. And what I showed you on the floor over there was half of it. That was only half. So that was 4 rows. And we'll get back to that. So that was my math. And then I take out the 1.5 inch for seam allowance, and I still get the 6 inches. Now, simple, okay? So when you sew these together, and here is a completely sewn strip with a fabric from one end to the other. I lined up these as best I could, these salvages, so that I could start pretty much with a clean edge right here, because you would trim that off. And then from this, with the fabric, it's about 42 inches or so. Then you are going to get 7 of these 6-inch units, okay? So when you do the math, that's pretty simple also. So you're going to get 7 of these 6-inch units. So my project I'm working on is 7 across, and then however many of these rows I cut, which I believe was 8, 7 or 8. So I was able to get like, I think 8. I actually think it's 8 rows out of almost a yard. And then the same with these half yards, because these are smaller inches. Remember, this is 3.5, and then these are only 2 inches. So I was able to get the 8 rows of these 2-inch strips and the 8 rows of this 3.5-inch strip from the fabric that I have. Half a yard, almost a full yard. Okay. So, then what you do, and they all have to be the same. So this is really simple because everything is the same. Everything. So all you're doing is you're sewing these strips together. Okay, so if you've never done that before, let me show you. It is really easy. And even if you need a refresher, you're always going to take for this project, this 3D rail fence project. Now, it's also called a step rail fence. I've seen it called a split rail fence. I've seen it called a zigzag rail fence. I'm calling it a 3D because in those, all of the rows were uniform. They were equal. Oh, my cat. Maybe you can hear her. She has a toy in her mouth. She sounds a little bit different when she has a toy in her mouth, and she wants me to play. Maybe she'll come in and make an appearance. But anyway, they were all uniform. They weren't different sizes like this. So I'm calling this 3D because it does, the fabric gives it a 3D effect. These darks and lights and these starbursts here, they kind of give it a 3D effect when you look from a distance. And because this is dark and black, but it's also white, it really like gives it a, yeah, there she is. She gives it a 3D effect. So, I have to show you the cat. Here she is right here. She's saying hello. Sorry for my back. She's saying hello, everybody. Hi. Okay. All right. So, you just lay out on your surface right here. Now, this is my cutting surface. So, let me take it even a step back further. When you have, and I probably should have saved this for the video, but I was just cutting all of my strips from the fabric. But when you get your fabric, it's going to come like this. So these are the two salvage edges together, and then this is just folded in half, okay? So you're with the fabric, that what you do then is you take it this way, and then you're cutting it this way. Okay, so then you take a longer, whatever you have, like a longer cutting tool, ruler, straight edge. So if this is my fabric, now it's really small fabric, but it's still with the fabric. Salvage edges here, the folded edge here, so it's in half. So then you take your long measuring tool, and then you line up wherever you want it to cut. And what I do is I actually take two and I measure in however far I want to cut, like wherever I want my line to be. I don't really want to be in this. I want you guys to just see this. Here we go. So then what I do is I line up the edge with the measurement that I want to cut. So maybe like I want to cut 1.5 inches. So then I measure here. Is this 1.5 inches right here? And then I place this cutting edge here. And then 1.5 inches, I make sure that's all straight. And then 1.5 inches here. And if I need to move it a little bit, I'll move it slightly. And then I'll recheck 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. So this is what I do. I just slide this up and down. Make sure this is all equal and uniform, and then I hold this down very carefully, and this is where I make my cut, okay? All the way from off of the fabric, all the way up to, again, off of the fabric, so that is a clean cut, okay? And then you want to do that with all of your strips, so you use up the entire fabric that you just purchased, okay? And however many of these, the highlighted fabric that you have, however many rows that you get, you want to have an equal number of your complementary colors or contrasting colors, whatever you're using, okay? And then that's it. So if you have 4 fabrics, you can still do this too. If you have 5 fabrics, it's the same. I'm only using 3, and it gets this really cool 3D effect. So maybe you saw that in the beginning. I'm taking a really long time to explain this, and I don't need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay this out, making sure that if you're using directional fabric that it is the same every time, okay? And then I always lay my directional fabric in the direction that I can read it, so I know that it is right. And then every pattern is the same. So what I do next is I place my purple and then the blue. So I have this purple strip. I place this here. This is the same for absolutely every project. And then I use this salvage edge over here, line that up there. And then the same thing with this one. This salvage edge goes here. Now these are not directional, so it really doesn't matter too much, but what I like to do is line up, can you see that? I line up all three of these salvage edges on the same side, and then make sure that this is flat all the way across. Now what I do first is I take these top two, I lay the top on here, and then I line up this little white line with this white line, and then you can use your pins or your Wonder clips. I don't have Wonder clips, I just have these binder clips, these paper binder clips. So I use those. I line up this white part here. You don't have to be super precise, but I just try to be close as possible. Pin that down, and then line up this edge. Okay. Pin it or clip it accordingly wherever you want to, and then you sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this side all the way down. I'm not going to do that because that's going to take up time, and you know how to do that. So I'll just show you on here. So I sewed a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down, okay, the whole way. So now this becomes a unit. So now these two pieces are sewn together, and this becomes a strip unit, okay? This is now attached. You have your 1/4 inch seam allowance right in here. Pretend I just did that. And now you take this unit and attach it to this unit. So it's the same thing. You want to sew your 1/4 inch seam allowance right on this edge, okay? So again, I line up as best I can this white salvage edge over here. I pin it, and then I'm going to sew 1/4 inch seam allowance right down here, okay? And then when you open that up, this is what you have. All right, now I'm going to set this aside. We are going to trim this into 6 inch squares, okay? And I start by putting my 3 inch mark. So this is the 1/2 inch, or not the 1/2 inch, the halfway point. 3 inch mark right on here. This seam, my 3 inch line, I line that up right along this seam. Okay, let's see if I can bring that in a little bit closer for you. 3 inch right along there. Now you can see I have a little overhang here, I have a little overhang here. I want to make sure I trim off all that salvage edge, and then I trim here, okay? So I'm being very careful all the way across. I can see that seam. 3 inch, okay? Now, oh crap. Okay. Trim that all off. Now that it's trimmed, every one of these is going to be uniform. Every one of these. And that's how you do that. Okay? And then, here's how you lay it out. I'm going to take you down here. So, my cat, because she was here, she just messed it up. But let me show you how we lay this out. Okay? So, these rows I already sewed together. So, these ones are already done. That is your template right here. Now I'm going to show you how easy this is. So we have and because the cat messed it up, not a big deal. It's super easy to put together. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the very top corner left. We're going to start with the highlighted, I'm calling this highlight fabric. So your highlighted fabric is going to look like this. So put your stripes up and down. Okay? And then your next stripes go like this. The highlight fabric is always at the bottom so you can read it, okay? And then the next one is going to be the same way. Highlighted fabric on the left, and you put that down. And then this goes this way again. So it's like that all the way across. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Simple. And then your second row is going to be this way. So you're going to look at the highlighted fabric, directional if you have it, and that goes on the bottom. So you can see how this works, right? So you have this and this together. Just going to put that a little closer to you. This and this together. And then it just goes opposite. So then the black on the left, the black goes down. The black on the left, the black goes down. The black on the left, and the black goes down. Okay? Great. Ignore that. That's my hot stones for a massage. Okay. Now you can see how this is starting to form a zigzag or a step. And if I zoom away, you can see how that becomes 3D. Isn't that cool? Uh-oh, there's a mistake in here, I think. Maybe not, just because it's not sewn together. This, here, let me put you down here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Now, it's going to shrink up quite a bit because of seam allowances. There are 6 seam allowances in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And a half inch each. That's going to be 3 inches. It is shrinking down. Okay? Now, let me fly you away again. Do you see how that creates a 3D effect? I think that is super awesome. And then all you do is you take, I'm just going to explode this out. You just take these two and sew them together. 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that is your entire quilt right there. You just take them, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you just sew them all together. Sew your rows, and then you sew your rows together like so. Okay? Just like that. You guys, I hope that makes sense. I hope you try that. It is really easy because you're making the same block. You're just changing the angle of it, and you're only changing it one time, basically. Okay, so let me show you again. So you start your top left with the black to the outside. I'm just using black, okay? You can use whatever color you want, but I'm just going to say it's black. All right, so you start here. Let me push this out a little bit more. This is where you start. And then your next one, the black goes down. And then this one, the black goes left. And this one, the black goes down. Okay, so you do that the whole way across. That's the same. Now when you come to the next row, you just start here. You start on the second step in. So the black goes down. And then the black on the left. And then the black goes down. And when you come back here, you're starting back at the same spot again. So on your third row, it's identical to row number 1. Black on the left. So your odd rows, 1, 3, 5, 7, they are black on the left to start. And then your even rows, 2, 4, 6, they are black on the bottom start. Does that make sense? I hope it does. It is super, super easy. And it's a Halloween theme because you're using a Halloween theme fabric and then whatever coordinating colors you want to use, okay? That is, so it's Halloween theme, it's 3D, it's easy, super simple, and it goes together relatively quickly. Have fun making this. If you have any questions, let me know. And if you want to see something else, please let me know too. All right, you guys, have fun. And again, you don't have to use just 3. You can use 4 or 5, maybe 6, but kind of keep it within a 6-inch square. That's easiest, okay? All right, you guys, have fun making this. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.